Hey guys, welcome to the fifth installment of the TOBEs. These are the Think Outside the Box episodes.
Uh-huh.
And we just try to bring up perspectives and just interesting things that you might not think about and you might not see in the news or whatever on a normal basis.
Right. Hey, so for this week, I actually found this article. There are some students from Clemson who are using UVC light to try to rid all, I guess, grocery store packages and whatnot from coronavirus, and then really any sort of other virus. Period. So their plan is they're building a device that you can put, like, I guess, boxes or bags or whatever you have through it, and it has to sit on it for 10 seconds or so, and then it will go out, and technically it's supposed to get rid of 90%, I think it said 99% in the article, of any germs or bacteria that may be on those packages. The only thing is you have to leave it under for 10 seconds, and it has to be within 6 inches of the products.
Okay.
So that could be a challenge. And as you mentioned earlier, with a lot of groceries, that could be time consuming. So that's one negative aspect to it. And I do like it though, just as a way of kind of sanitizing.
I was gonna say disinfecting.
Yeah, which sounds weird. We disinfecting our groceries before we take them home, but I really think that they're onto something with that. The only thing is, really, it's going to be expensive to produce if you think about all the stores and all the lanes. They said as of right now, the cost seemed to be about $100, which isn't bad, but the light is literally half of that. The bulb that you use is literally $50. So depending on how long those last or whatever, it could be expensive. But I do like the idea of it. And I heard a while back too that there are hospitals that use the same technology. Now, this article said that UVC light has been shown to cause damage to human skin. So they have to put it in a box of some sort. But the article that I read, and then this was in an Ink magazine a while back, so I've missed something or whatever. But those are just regular in the ceiling lights. They didn't have any sort of restrictions or anything on how close you can be to them or anything like that. They just seem to eliminate the bacteria out of the air. So
we kind of briefly discussed this for a second before we recorded, and we were kind of like talking about like how practical is it and things like that. And while you said that, just now, I kind of thought of like, I guess what you could do, depending on cost and long-term effects or potentially long-term exposure, like, is it okay if something sits under the light for a minute rather than 10 seconds? Like, is that okay?
Okay,
The reason I say that is because what we could do, I'm trying to think of like the conveyor belts, right? Like at the grocery store or whatever. You could, I mean, I guess it'd have to be kind of large, but you could just do like a plexiglass kind of casing around it.
Okay.
And you put your stuff in at one end, and then the whole plexiglass case is lined with these lights.
Right.
And it just disinfects as they go through, and the dude grabs it and scans it, and you're good to go.
Okay, I see.
But I guess I wonder, obviously cost effective, and then again, long-term exposure, like to your fruit, like is it going to melt your fruit after a minute under this light?
Right.
What's the situation with that? But I think because the reason I say that is, when you first brought it up, the first thing I thought of is like, if each thing has to be under the light for 10 seconds, Americans especially are not that patient.
No.
So we're not going to wait for 10 seconds for each item. That's insane. Nobody's ever going to do that.
No.
But that's why I thought of the conveyor belt, the plexiglass, the whatever, but then you got to think of the long-term exposure and like blah, blah, blah. But either way, I think they're onto something.
Yeah, that's a very clever idea. And then, like I said, even after this thing is over with, you can use them just to, kind of curb, at least out of the grocery stores or whatever retail stores you may be buying things from, the exposure to different bacteria and germs and things like that. So I thought it was really important to shout these people out. It seems to be a group of women from Clemson University. Like, yeah, there's a group of 3 of them that are working on it, and this was actually from May 11th of this year. So
2 weeks ago.
yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
they're it's pretty recent, something pretty new that they're doing, and I guess we'll see if it takes off.
I like that though, man. Like, so I'm thinking like maybe manufacturers can start implementing that, and that might boost sales. But then you got to
Right.
think about transport and then getting it to the grocery store and the contamination after that. And
Right.
the most effective place would be the grocery store,
Right.
and most likely the conveyor belt or the checkout counter or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions still, but I think they're obviously onto something. They're obviously extremely smart people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. My thing is, should you do it as they come into the store or as the customer's leaving with it? Because if you want to limit the bacteria in the store,
Good
wouldn't
point.
it be smarter to do it as they come in, as they're getting unloaded off the truck or whatnot, rather than, we really just protecting the end consumer when we just put them on the conveyor belt at the end, when they're purchasing it.
Yeah,
on the way out the door.
but then you gotta realize everybody that walks in the door might contaminate that orange or the bag of lettuce or whatever just by coughing next to it or whatever,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
touching it or picking it up for a second or whatever.
Right.
So I think the most effective way would be the conveyor belts, but at what cost is it? And are we gonna be patient enough and all that kind of stuff? But I think that's awesome, man. I think
man.
that's cool. My thing is a little different.
All right.
We're gonna switch gears a little bit. We're gonna get emotional. We're gonna talk about emotions. So this was just something I kind of thought of, before we recorded, but I think it's a good thing to point out, especially, and I hate to single any group of people out, but especially to our women listeners, to just kind of remind you guys or make you aware of this thing, and we'll obviously explain it a little more. But I know women of all the time complain that guys aren't emotional or in touch with their feelings or whatever. But I just want to say that like guys can express their emotions without being emotional.
Interesting.
I think, and I think that would be in the sense of like acting out the emotion.
Right.
So like I could tell you I'm sad and this upset me, but I don't have to be yelling at you or crying or whatever.
Right.
But I can still tell you that, and I'd still be, from my perspective anyway, in touch with my feelings, you know what I mean, and all that kind of stuff, without being potentially labeled as emotional. Like, that's not a bad thing, but a lot of women would say that I'm not an emotional person. I think, and I think that would be fair.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that
That's
would be
a fair
fair.
assessment.
But at the same time, I think I'm one of the most in touch with my feelings men that I know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I brought this up. It's kind of a fine line and kind of a weird, interesting perspective.
I like it. So when I was a teen, I had an adult tell me that I show no emotion on my face.
Okay.
Which made me think a lot, because it was like, damn, inside, I feel whatever. But she just told me that she couldn't tell how I was feeling at all based on the look on my face.
Why does that matter, though?
Because she felt like,
I feel like that's a positive, actually.
okay.
But continue.
Now, I mean, she made it sound like it wasn't a positive. She made it sound like I should be better at
Expressing, right?
She didn't say, like, if she act, I can tell you how I feel, you know what I mean? But she kind of implied that I should show that emotion more, whether it be good or bad, whether it, and especially for men, I feel like it's definitely a little tougher to show the negative emotions. unless it's like anger or something like that. But like sadness or, even feelings like guilt and things like that, not necessarily pleasant feelings.
Right.
But the older I got, I've other people have told me like, Steve, like I could just look at you and tell you're feeling this or you're feeling that, and I've actually tried to hide it, and people were like, no, you're not good at hiding your feelings. So I've always wondered like what the difference is, like from person to person, even.
Right.
Like
That's a good point.
What do they look at to be like, oh yeah, like for example, my ex roommate, I guess because she lived with me. But the other person that told me that I don't show anything was around me all the time too. But, Corinne will be like, I told her that one day and she was like, you are one of the most easy people to read. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah. She was like, I could just look at you and I could tell by the fact that you don't even say anything how you're feeling, which blew my mind. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. I feel like it's somewhat
subjective.
Right.
I will say, like, and you can tell me if I'm wrong with this, like, it's very obvious when I'm mad. I think you can tell that by looking at me. When I'm mad, it's pretty obvious. But when I'm not mad, a lot of the time I look mad.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I think, because, like, even today it happened, man. Somebody was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, you talking to me? Like, nothing's wrong. And they're like, oh, you just look upset. And I'm like, I'm just chilling. Like,
right, dude.
You know what I mean? But I got a mean looking face sometimes.
Right.
But it is obvious when I'm mad, you'll be like, oh, he's pissed, right? But so it's a weird line, but I wanted to ask you this, and ask you this kind of on the recording just to get a genuine reaction. If somebody was to ask you my emotional level, how would you explain that?
Your emotional level, like your ability to,
however you want to take that question.
Okay.
However you want to, there's no wrong answer.
Okay.
Because, I'll get into what I think afterwards.
Got you. The question one more time.
What do you think is my, like, level, or like how in touch with my emotions am I? I guess that would be a better way.
I would describe you as pretty emotionally intelligent, mainly because how well you handle them. I feel like people who don't know what they're feeling, they react irrationally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? I think people who are in touch with or know exactly what they're feeling or can put a finger on it somewhat, they just react differently to the whole thing in general. So I think with you being as mellow as you are, and obviously you feel things or you're not fucking human, you're not a Terminator. Right. So, yeah, I think I would say pretty high.
So 0 out of 10, emotional intelligence, what would you say?
8.
8, okay. Now 0 out of 10, emotional, what would you say?
Ooh. Bro, you like one of the least emotional people I know. If we're talking who's emotional, who's not emotional, yeah, you are on the low end of that, probably a 2.
Right. But that's my point. That's my point with all this. I'm very in touch with my feelings. I'll tell you how I feel, and I have no problem doing it. It gets me in trouble sometimes, but I'm very in touch with it, and I can be emotional and things like that without expressing it.
Right.
But that's kind of what I want to convey with this, and I don't want to point it at the women, but I think that's a good thing for them to hear, is that men can be emotional and very emotionally intelligent and things like that without often expressing it the way you want us to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I can see that.
I think that's a good thing to point out to really everybody, but and that goes for men and women on both sides. Everybody's like this. But just because I'm not showing you that I'm sad or angry or whatever doesn't mean that I'm not, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to tell you about it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So,
and I think that for me is a benefit, but maybe not for everybody.
Yeah,
so.
I see that. I had a huge problem with just shutting down when I felt heavy emotions, especially obviously the negative ones, and I've had people call me emotional for that too.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Even though I'm physically doing nothing. Like, you know what I mean? I may have like a pout type of
Right.
posture and not saying too much or not giving eye contact. And they're like, oh, damn, you being emotional right now. Why are you being so emotional about it?
Right.
And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm trying not to be emotional by
Right.
not saying nothing and not looking in your eyes and just sitting here.
Right.
But I'm doing the total exact opposite by,
Right.
you know what I mean? I'm kind of like you're fighting it. What's your resist, persist type thing? You know
Right.
what I mean? So
definitely an interesting conversation about the emotional intelligence versus showing showing emotions,
right,
not
right,
intelligence. But
right.
definitely interesting and hopefully something for you to think about.
For
But
sure.
we appreciate you guys being on the Patreon and
TOBE.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out that bonus episode from the Patreon. If you like what you see, please subscribe, share the video, like the video, all that kind of stuff. Tell a friend. And if you want to see more of these bonus episodes 3 months before the public, sign up for our Patreon. We release new episodes every week and a ton of other bonus content. You can join for as little as $2 a month. Other than that, we do have merch options and all that kind of stuff. Follow us on socials and everything like that as well. But we do appreciate the support. Have a good day.